It's Alexander. This is discussion board 4. First, I'll start with I Too Sing America. I thought I Too Sing America was a very um, colorful and descriptive poem about the suffering and the oppression that has been in place structurally on the African American community. Um, it was I liked it. It was pretty good. I like how he went into details and like he said, I don't know. I think basically the message of what he's saying is that he has a voice, and he's trying to say that you can't stop me, and I'm gonna be the voice that's not present right now, or not in the limelight, and that's what I got out of that poem, and I really liked it. Um, Next, we'll talk about "Strange Fruit" by Nina Simone. I thought it was a disturbing song because it was about slaves being hung, or just I guess African Americans in general being hung. When comparing them to strange fruit is it's kind of morbid, but I mean I guess you have to be kind of morbid when you talk about things like this because there are atrocities, and it's I don't know, it's I like the song. I mean, I like the message that she, for the time it was like really controversial. I'm sure a lot of people were really upset at her for writing that song. um, but it's I don't know, it's like hard to say that you like that song, but I guess I like that song, and the fact that it's like, yeah, it was like very eye-opening. Like, I don't know, this is a very powerful song, I thought. Positive and negative aspects or elements of in America becoming industrialized in regards to African Americans. I think that, okay, so like positives, I think there's some pretty good positives. I think that um, it got a lot of African Americans out of sharecropping, which was like pretty much right. It was pretty much slavery. It was like slavery part two. So I really think that was like pretty good, you know. And then I think another good factor too of industrialization is that the pull factor. I don't even really think that in chapter 4 or 5 it really talked about the pull factor, but it briefly maybe. But like I think that like industrialization happened in the North, and it pulled a lot of African Americans. Like they were pretty much all in the South, you know. And then after industrialization happened, those 4 different charts, they showed how eventually it just more spread out and displaced, more evenly displaced in America as a whole. So I think that was another good aspect of it. Another good aspect of it is it ended. It kind of was the beginning of like intermixing of like black people and white people in the workplace. It said in the book that like a lot of low income, like a lot of not very like a lot of poor white people were working in the factories or manufacturing things, and alongside black people. So that was good, I think, in a way, because it brought them together, you know. And the more exposure you have to other people and ideas, the more fluid that the society could probably become. There are negative aspects, though. I would say that some of the negative aspects are like when they moved to the city and became urbanized from the rural areas, they often got placed in communities, right? Because like in the book, it talked about how like the immigrants, like the previous immigrants, they kind of fought and won their like little piece of. They weren't treated very well either, and then they kind of fought and won like a little bit of like respect and like were given a little bit of respect, and then they were like in complete fear of when the African Americans moved up to the north that they like alienated them, segregated them, and then they were just kind of doing the same thing. Kind of, they just did the same thing that happened to them to the African American community, and then also they placed them into like these. They forced all of the African Americans, into specific areas of uh, the city, whether it be the inner city or just a certain part of the city, they were forced to go there, which I think did a lot of harm on society because as we progressed, then those people were in, say, like more inner city locations, which have, traditionally like worse schools. I'm from Kansas City. I mean, I can attest to that. We played a lot of schools, and you could always tell the schools that were closer to the middle of the city were always, they like when we'd go to their schools, it looked like they had less funding, or just looked like their schools were falling apart more. And the further you got away from the center of the city, the nicer the schools usually got. And then when you hit the suburbs, schools were like fantastic. But so I mean, I think that did tremendous damage to the African American community. I think that industrialization also kind of forced them into, I don't know, I wouldn't say more racism or more oppression, but it forced them into, I guess, a different kind of oppression. So they were just traditionally oppressed by like the southern folks, and then they moved to like a big city, right? So maybe they moved from like a, say, like a smaller rural to area where there maybe was like 100 people, right? Then they moved to a very large city where there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. That would probably be pretty. I wouldn't want to live in those conditions. I can tell you that because it would be crazy just knowing that there's this many people around me that just disliked me and were just using the color of my skin to judge me as a person. So those are some positive and negatives of industrialization. I think overall it was a good thing, but thanks.